Ask Audrey what you want to know.
Okay, so I know I'm coming in a few minutes late, so I apologize, everybody. Just our main thing is just knowing what plans are in place to let people actually be able to get through and get their comments heard. I understand that there was some trouble for people accessing it just with the influx of people getting on. So anything you can share with that would be much appreciated.
Sure. So we definitely apologize for that glitch, and we were very frustrated that happened. We had every confidence in the program. Unfortunately, that phone number that we provided, for whatever reason, didn't operate this morning as we had hoped. Thank goodness we had a contingency plan in place, and we did have a second number. We were able to quickly go live with our second number. So our call center representatives are taking phone calls. Unfortunately, we did get about a 90-minute delay in getting started this morning, later than we had hoped. But we do anticipate having that primary number being worked on and anticipated to have that back online for the public this afternoon, so that anybody that doesn't have the opportunity to get the new messaging and the new phone number, hopefully when they try again later, that other number will be operable for them. So we won't be removing the second number, we'll be adding the number. So call center representatives will now be taking phone calls from both numbers once the initial number is back up and running.
So how many people had called in this morning? You said you have some numbers?
Sure, I have some numbers, and I'm actually very proud to say that since we did open 90 minutes late, we have already taken 500 calls. So the phone is working, and I do have confirmation of those 500 callers getting.
So were you able to take any calls when it first opened, or none at all?
We were not able to take any calls at all. So at 8 o'clock, I can imagine the frustration and the concern and the panic on some people that had heard about this program, were relying on this program, and had been waiting to call this morning at 8 o'clock this morning, and that weren't able to get through. And we absolutely apologize, and we worked on that, and we have fixed the problem.
Okay. So if you don't mind just kind of talking in brief about the program for people who might not even know about it.
So the program is intended to provide some relief to households that have been impacted by a loss of wage due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So households that may be experiencing the inability to pay their rent or the inability to pay their utility bills, we're able to determine if they're eligible based on their loss of income due to the pandemic. And if they are eligible, we'll be able to pay their landlord and pay the utility companies, so that as those services begin to resume disconnect or evictions, they won't be impacted.
And I know there were some programs, I guess, like the city of Tampa, who kind of had to stop taking calls because there were so many, they were inundated. How many are you expecting to be able to help in this?
It actually depends. The number that we'll be able to assist will vary depending on what people's obligations are. So the shelter payments will be based on the fair market rent rate. So it really depends on the applicant's expenses, which will dictate how much will be able to be expended on each household. So that's really going to dictate how far that $15 million goes. But it really doesn't make much sense to pay partial payments. We want to make people whole, and we want to make them able to be sustainable through this until they're able to get back to work, which we hope is sooner rather than later.
What was the average number you were working with, Audrey?
The number we're working with, which is somewhat of a guesstimate, but we're hoping to serve about 6,000 households.
And that's an average of how much money per household then? I guess a couple of thousand?
I can do the math again. I think it's 3,000 or 3,600. Mm-hmm. If I'm not being recorded, I'll do the math for you.
Nobody likes being recorded when they're doing math. It looks like about 2,500, something like that.
Divided by 3,000. It's about 5,000, 6,000 households.
And it's first come, first serve, is that the deal?
It is first come, first serve.
So those folks who called early in the morning, I'm sure they were very frustrated.
I can imagine, and I really encourage them to call back and have confidence in the system. And we regret what happened this morning, but if they could give us a call back, we are taking calls, and we really, hopefully we'll have a way for them to get through today.
The county got $265 million. This is $15 million of that. Do you anticipate a second round possibly for people who haven't lost their jobs yet but might?
I anticipate requesting that depending on the volume and the demand for services, and depending on the duration of the COVID-19 pandemic disruption to our economy and to our, our employers. So if that should be the case, we'll gauge that, find out how many households we are able to assist, maybe talk to the landlords, maybe talk to the utility companies and find out what they're experiencing as far as what they're anticipating to disconnect and evict when all of this resumes. And from there, ask the county if they would consider funding the program a little additionally. But at this point, we're hoping to get ahead of the curve, make this initial attempt to get people serviced quickly, reduce some of the risk and reduce some of the panic out there, and then from there potentially ask the county if they would continue an additional funding for the program.
How long do you think that this will take in terms of, that roughly 6,000 households? When do you think we'll know when that 6,000 has been met? I mean, will we know by the end of the week kind of who gets that funding?
Unfortunately, it's first come, first serve. Bills are very high. Most people are probably a month or two behind on their shelter obligation. So we do unfortunately expect to pretty much have the funds obligated this week.
Okay.
So you're thinking by this week you'll be, okay. And so people should not call that first number, they should call the second number. What should they?
I would advise callers at this point to call the second number that we've made published, which is 813-274-6710. And we will have additional messaging available to let the public know when the primary phone number has been serviced and back in circulation. One of the reasons I want to make sure that that phone number is available is so that we continue to have a contingency plan. And I also want to make sure that anyone who may have watched the news last night and gotten that information or read about the program in the media and wrote that phone number down and doesn't call until later today, or maybe is waiting to call tomorrow and decided to, let the first rush get out of the way, I still want that phone number to be available for them to use so that they don't experience the same frustration that our initial callers experienced this morning.
So right now that first line is down. It's still down.
And we do have some hope and some messaging back from the vendor that it will be available again this afternoon. But again, that we're waiting on that.
And that line that's down, is there any recording or anything that's directing people to that new phone number?
As of right now, there is not. The number is currently being serviced.
Okay. And you said you guys hope to have that number back up and running so that you can have two lines. Is that right?
We do hope to have that up and running. However, that won't necessarily increase capacity to serve the public. What that will do is give us a comfort level that we have a backup contingency plan with both numbers, and it'll also serve to ensure that anyone who had written that number down and who had intended to call at a later time, won't be disappointed or won't still be directed and not have the means to get to the current phone number.
And
okay,
go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no. So we're rerouting everybody to that second number. And then if somebody just happens to have the first number, you're gonna have that open. Is that right? I just wanna make sure.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay.
And did I hear correctly that it's 17 people that have been assigned to take these calls, or has that number of staff gone up?
The number remains at 17.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you.
What you may have heard, and just so I can clarify, I was talking to the other gentleman, what we do anticipate adding additional staffing to is the back end piece. So while customers and households that are applying for this assistance are providing us with their validation documentation to determine eligibility, and we're able to start making those payments, we do need additional staff from the county to be able to help us make those payments. We want to be quick. We want to try to have the same day turnaround while the capacity or the demand is very high, but we will be dedicating additional staff to the back end process.
Yeah, how soon? Yeah, I guess how soon will they get the money? Sorry about that. How soon will they get the money? And it'll be approved, like what's the process?
We're hoping to work within the same day time frame. So I know that's a little bit advantageous on our part, but we are hoping to get these funds expedited quickly throughout our entire process, from the call center screening through the eligibility process, through the payment process, so that the vendors can have those fundings quickly, and maybe the landlords can stop assessing late maybe give everyone a, a comfort level that those things are kind of off the table now, and things that they don't have to worry about as those bills continue to escalate.
Audrey, before we go, can you re-articulate that these funds aren't going directly to residents, they're going to the vendors, just so everybody fully understands that real quick? And then we're probably going to need to cut this off, guys, because Audrey's got another thing coming up.
So just to speak to what Chris mentioned, all of the payments, as they're determined eligible for services, will be made directly to each vendor. So shelter payments will be made to landlords and to mortgage companies. Utility payments will be made to those vendors such as Tampa Electric, county and city water departments. Sometimes households pay utilities directly to their landlord. So we will be making payments on behalf of those households that are eligible to the direct providers.
Audrey, you mentioned that this is these payments will be going to county and city water departments. That's because this this program is available to all Hillsborough County residents, including those who live inside of municipalities, City of Tampa, Plant City, and Temple Terrace. Can you re-articulate that real quick for me?
Sure. So the program does allow for eligibility to be determined based on being a Hillsborough County resident, whether that's in unincorporated Hillsborough County, the City of Tampa, Plant City, or Temple Terrace. So everyone that's eligible should apply.
All right.
Thank you so much.